a moment to think of yourself as the loved one who's going into a facility. Just for a moment. Now, think about the fact that you've now been uprooted from everything you know. Everyone you know. Maybe you had a pet and your pet can't go with you. And you're placed in a room where the walls are a foreign color, the light hits the floor differently, and the air smells like industrial laundry soap instead of your favorite morning coffee. And then here comes a well-meaning, well-intended family member who walks into the room, and they look around and they say, "Well, look how lovely this is, Mom. It's just like a nice hotel." But as you look at the sterile, perfectly made bed, your heart just breaks. Because you don't want to live in a hotel. You want your dented kitchen countertops where you chop vegetables for 40 years. You want that squeaky floorboard that's next to your bed. Because a hotel just implies that you're just passing through, really. It implies that you really just don't belong. So when we move a loved one into assisted living, into memory care, or even into a nursing home, we often focus on the logistics of the move, that we miss the psychological shift that needs to happen next. We try to convince our loved one that their new facility is luxurious and it's fun and they're going to meet a lot of people, when what they actually need to know is that they're safe and that they still matter. Acclimation isn't about getting used to a new building. It's really about translating the feeling of home into this brand new space. So today we're going to talk about the best evidence-based ways to help your loved one to truly acclimate, to settle their nervous system, and to find their footing in this new chapter. So the first, we're going to talk about the blank slate, because once you put your loved one into a facility, of course, it's just a blank slate. It's just a room, right? Nothing's in it. So when decorating a new facility room, our first instinct sometimes is just to buy everything just brand new, right? We want them to have a fresh start, so we buy a beautiful new armchair, we buy a lounge chair, we buy a coffee table, we buy a matching comforter set, we buy a new bed, and we may even buy some new lamps. But you know what? This is one of the biggest mistakes that a caregiver can make. Because there is power in things that are familiar to your loved one. Especially to a person who's experiencing cognitive decline or the trauma of relocation. Brand new items aren't recognizable. They don't give them any comfort. They don't offer any stability for them. But all it gives them is a little bit of confusion. So what you want to do is you want to bring the old things. I know you're like, well, Mom has had this chair for 40 years, for 50 years. It's time for her to get a new one. No, that's the chair that Mom likes. So let Mom keep it. It's okay to bring that faded, slightly worn recliner that they have sat in for at least the last 10 to 20 years, right? It's okay to take that quilt that's been washed over 100 times. Because the smell of it and the texture of those items, they're going to be an emotional anchor for your loved one. You'll be surprised. And then when your loved one opens their eyes in the morning, the very first thing that they're going to see from their bed should be something that they are familiar with. I mean, don't put the family photo gallery on the wall behind their bed, because at that point they can't see it. But place it directly across from them. So let their first conscious thought of the day be grounded in who they are and who loves them. And then if your dad, let's say your dad always kept tissues or his glasses and his favorite radio on the right side of his bed at home, set it up the exact same way on the right side of his bed in the facility. Because mimicking their old spatial habits, it's going to reduce their nighttime anxiety and any confusion that they may have. Let's talk further about the acclimation process. Because remember that The physical room is really just a starting point. True acclimation really happens when they step outside of the door. But you can't just hand them an activities calendar and say, hey, go have fun at bingo. Because imagine they're sitting in a crowded activity room and it's full of strangers. That could be terrifying for them. So what you might want to do is just ask the activities director to introduce your loved one to another resident who maybe shares the same interests or the same background. Because if your mom loves gardening, then maybe they can find a resident who tends the courtyard flowers. It is much easier for your loved one to acclimate when they have a friendly face to look for in the dining room. And then the next thing might be a staff cheat sheet. Write down a cheat sheet. And it's going to be for the frontline staff, and you may want to just tape it inside your loved one's closet door, right? But what's on this cheat sheet? What's on the cheat sheet is maybe 3 things about your loved one that can help to start a conversation. Maybe they spent time in the Army or the Navy or the Marines. Maybe they were in World War I or World War II. Maybe your loved one loves jazz music from, let's say, the 30s or the 40s. Maybe he used to breed golden retrievers. So then what happens is when you make this little cheat sheet for the staff, when the aide walks in to check on your loved one, they could say, hey, I hear that you used to have golden retrievers. And then what happens at that point is the facility instantly transforms from an institution into a community for them. Another idea could be the dining room strategy. And this is when you work with the director. In my case, it was the director of the memory care floor, or maybe it's someone who's over the food. Have them to make sure that your loved one has an assigned consistent seat at a table with maybe other compatible residents, because the dining room can feel like a high school cafeteria if they don't manage it well. So having a designated spot creates an immediate sense of belonging for your loved one. And then let's navigate the vocal phase of grief, because during the first 2 weeks, your loved one is going to grieve. They may cry, they may beg to go home, they may even lash out in anger. So how do you respond to that grief determines how quickly they're going to acclimate. So keep in mind, what you say is going to be very important. First, don't argue with reality. If your mom says, I hate it here, I want to go home, then I know your natural reflex is to defend the facility, right? But mom, the staff is so nice and look at this beautiful view. And what happens is when you respond that way, it minimizes her feelings and it makes her feel isolated. But instead, why don't you lean into that emotion? I know, Mom, you miss the old house. It's really hard to adjust to a new place. I miss the old house too. This will keep them calm and it will validate their grief so it can just pass. And then if your loved one has, let's say, dementia, and they're packing their bags to go home like my dad often did, and packing reminds them that they live there now, and that can cause them a panic attack. So what you can do is instead just redirect them to a sense of purpose. And maybe just say, the roads really aren't good right now. They're kind of bad, so we need to stay here for tonight. But while we wait, can you help me fold these towels? So give them a small task, and that grounds them in the moment. And that's the importance of redirection. And then try to establish some routine visits. Create a predictable calendar or schedule for your visits, because if they know that you always come on Mondays at 1:00, then it gives them a landmark in their week to look forward to. It helps them to look forward to you coming. And that lowers their overall anxiety because they're saying to other people, my daughter's visiting today. My son is going to visit today. And let's talk about what home really means to your loved one now. Because remember, home isn't a structure anymore that's made of brick or wood or vinyl siding. Home is going to be that place of being known, of being safe, and of being loved. So when you bring their physical memories into their new home, you're bridging the gap between them and the staff, and you're honoring their grief without trying to fix everything, because you can't fix it. Without taking them out, you're helping them to build a new home. And it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. Sometimes, for some people, it takes 3 to 6 weeks before they see the first real smile coming from their loved one. But all I can say is just be patient with them and be patient with yourself. Remember, it's a new transition for them. And if you're in the thick of this transition right now and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed because your loved one is crying a lot, your loved one is saying they want to go home, hang in there. You're paving the way for their peace of mind. So if this episode has resonated with you, please do share it with another caregiver. Keep it on repeat for when you need it. Share it with a family member. And if you have not already subscribed to the Empowered Caregiver podcast, please do so that you are notified as soon as I drop a new episode. So remember, give yourself grace, give your loved one grace, and do what you can to make their new facility room feel like home for them. Until next time, take care of yourself.